Hello and welcome to the members update for the spring term 2025. This update webinar is for our members from private, voluntary and independent settings, some of our section 27 colleagues within primary schools and our childminders. Please remember that this recording is for members only, so please don't share the link with anyone else from outside of your organisation, but please do share it with all colleagues who are working in your staff team. I'm Annette Shepherd and I'm going to guide you through the information today. We're all working together in Lancashire to support all of our children to aspire, achieve and shine. It's an absolutely fantastic ambition that we've got together to improve outcomes for every single one of our children in every area of the county and in every area of learning and development. We really are going to make a difference working together. We especially want to close gaps for those children who are perhaps a little bit more vulnerable, maybe some of our white British disadvantaged boys in particular, our children with SEND and our children who are looked after. And we're going to talk right at the end of the session today about maybe a different approach in how we can support those children. And of course, we're all working tirelessly to close that word gap and improve communication and language for our children, because we know that is what's going to make the biggest difference. We have organised the session a little bit differently today. This is following feedback from yourselves, so thank you very much for that, and please do send any feedback following the session today. So we've organised the information this time around 10 key points. So we'll start at number 10 and work our way up to our top number 1. So we're going to start with what's coming up this term, then move on to some general reminders. We're going to look at parents and the home learning environment, equality, diversity and inclusive practice, enabling environments, both from the centre and from yourselves, that are really inspirational. Then we're going to have a look in a little bit more detail around some of the key points to inform you about around the prime areas and then the specific areas of learning and development, working our way up to feedback from our most recent Ofsted inspections from the autumn term. Then a look at some safeguarding key messages from Catherine. And finally, I want to finish off at number 1 to tell you a little bit more about the dandelions and orchids theory, and in particular how that approach can support your early years pupil premium children. So coming up first then at number 10, I'm going to take you through some updates and give you a glimpse at what's coming up this term. We are really pleased with how effective the Welcome initiative is already being within our Lancashire nurseries. It's making such a huge difference already. We can see from the data that people are submitting that children are making absolute strides in their development, which is fantastic news. You will receive a monthly email from me, and that will inform you about the upcoming free training sessions for the term ahead. We do want every single nursery practitioner to access these free training sessions over time so that everybody is fully equipped in your settings and knowledgeable about how to undertake those screenings and how to provide the follow-up support for every single child within the setting. We do want you to screen every child from age 2. So when you undertake your 2-year-old progress checks, then undertake a welcome screening at the same time. and then carry on screening those children at the end of each term until they go to school. So it will sort of wave out across your setting until most children are included. If you want to screen the younger children and your preschoolers who are going to school in September, that's absolutely fine. But we do want you to start with those 2-year-olds so that we can really make a difference as quickly as possible. You might be contacted over the coming months from one of our HLTAs or associate HLTAs who will chat to you around the progress that you're making in your setting with Welcome, and also to offer you some support in really getting that going and using those materials effectively to meet your needs. If you've already started using the wizard, carry on. Your account will automatically transfer over to the digital reporting tool later in the term, so you don't need to worry, just carry on as normal. If you haven't started using the digital reporting tool yet, or the wizard, then you will need to log on to the Welcome digital reporting tool and get started. We do need you to input that information so that we can keep our eye on local needs and put additional support in as and where it's necessary. So if you can't find your login details for the new digital reporting tool, just email the centre and they will be able to help you get onto that. So that's Early Years Centre at lancashire.gov.uk. If you're one of our childminding settings and you feel that you would like support to meet the communication and language needs of any of the children that you're caring for, then please do contact one of your development officers, Amy, Kelly or Claire, and they will be able to help you. We're really excited to tell you about the launch of our new Building Blocks video collection for communication and language. This comes alongside a compendium of guidance materials and reference materials that you can go back to that run alongside the 12 modules within the Building Blocks for Communication and Language collection. This is an absolutely fantastic tool that we would encourage every single setting to access so that you've got for every member of staff, all of your assistants, that clear message around communication and language development and all the different elements that that comprises of. So this costs £100 for our nursery settings, and that is yours then to keep. So that will support you to induct new members of your team and make sure that they've got all of that basic knowledge, skills and understanding around communication and language development. We are really thrilled about this. We hope that you will use it in staff meetings and watch the modules together as a staff team. Each of those modules are about 10 minutes long, those videos, so you can watch them as a team and then chat together to think about how you can make sure that that particular element is really embedded in your practice and provision. And we're really thrilled as well to tell you about our new podcasts that will be launched later this term, so watch out for those. These are recordings that we've made, voices from the sector, some of our leaders and managers from our nurseries and childminding settings, talking about effective leadership and around their approach in their setting and the changes that they've made and the impact that those changes are having on children's learning and development. So they are going to be something not to miss. So watch this space for those announcements to follow. As you are thinking about the year ahead and what you'd like to really focus on as part of your improvement plan, which, as we all know, is a continuous cycle. We've always got something more that we can do to help our children improve and develop well. The Lancashire Quality Awards are a great tool in supporting you to self-evaluate and reflect on your current practice and provision. They're all aimed at whole teams, so they come alongside some self-evaluation materials that can guide you through that reflective process, alongside some essential training for each of the awards. So whatever it is that you're focusing on, we will have an award that looks at that particular area in depth. So I would encourage you to use that. And I want to take the opportunity to say a huge congratulations to the 14 settings who were awarded a Lancashire Quality Award by the December awarding panel. So well done to all of you. Coming up at number 9 then, we've got some reminders, things that I just want to make sure that you remember and don't forget about. First of all then is a reminder about our website. It is a hub of all of our information. To find us, just search on the internet Lancashire Early Years Support and Training, and that will bring you to our landing page that you can see on the slide there. And like I say, everything that we do and offer is on that page. Our Facebook page is really the best way to keep abreast of all current information. We do post regularly on our Facebook page, so anything that's new that we need to tell you about quickly will come via there. And again, just go onto Facebook and search Lancashire Early Years and you'll find our page there. You'll also find lots of information on our YouTube channel. So again, go onto YouTube and search at Lancs Early Years and you'll find our landing page on YouTube too. And there's lots of videos on there for you to look at and share with your staff team. As always, if you want to contact us about anything at all, the best email address to use is earlyyearscentre@lancashire.gov.uk, and our fantastic team at the centre will put you in touch then with the right person for your query. And please remember to use the Early Years Professional Development Centre. The environments downstairs are absolutely inspirational and we do change those each term. So please do come along. You can book a visit, which is free for all of our members to access via the link on the slide there. We'd love to see you. We launched our new Managers Academy, if you remember, in September. So this is anybody who's new to the role of manager, might have just been the manager for the last 6 to 12 months or so. This is to really help you find your feet in the most extraordinary job you'll ever undertake, the most rewarding one, but it is so diverse, isn't it? So the Managers Academy is just to provide that supportive tool to give you that little bit more support and contact details for somebody who's just at the end of the phone, who you can talk to really whenever you want to. So please do follow the link there to join our new Managers Academy, which is completely free if you haven't done already. Similarly, in September, we started our new Practitioner Academy, and these are sessions that we're running just for an hour each half term for anybody who's new to childcare, again within the last 12 months, or maybe even people training, at college and doing placements with you, or apprentices. This is for people to come along to those hour-long sessions to find out a little bit about what we do in Lancashire, what's on offer, but also to enable people to network in that little group of new people all together and ask any questions. It's a safe space to ask any questions that people want to. And that will really support your induction of new staff members to your team. The links to those sessions are on the next slide, and again, they're completely free. People don't need to book on, they can just follow the link and join on the right date and at the right time. So our next session is the 21st of January, and then we have one each half term right through to the summer holidays. You will all have been sent our training brochures towards the end of the summer term in July. If you've misplaced those and would like another copy emailing to you, then please do contact the Early Years Centre at earlyyearscentre@lancashire.gov.uk, and they will email you the brochures. All of those courses, though, are available on our website for you to have a look at and book, and you can follow the link on the slide there in order to do that. Lots of our training courses now are available on what we call instant access, which means they are pre-recorded training sessions that you can access and watch at a time that's convenient to you, alongside, of course, our key face-to-face training sessions that we know are really important, and because we know that face-to-face training is more impactful, we'd really encourage you to do a bit of both and try and balance so that you're getting access to really high quality professional development to support your improvements. You'll notice when you look at our training on the website now or through the brochure that a lot of our training has gone to what we call instant access. So that's pre-recorded sessions that you can purchase and watch at a time that's convenient to you. We know that face-to-face training at the centre is the most effective way and most impactful way of accessing professional development, but we do know that that's really difficult for some people to access in that way. So we've tried to make things available in alternative ways too for you. Also, we've got a huge range of publications, again, so that you've got that information, that advice and guidance, top tips if you like, practical ideas to have and keep in your setting, so that you've got that information to share with all members of staff and can use that really effectively. We've got a brand new publication which Laura's going to talk to you about later on with Jane, and that's around parental engagement, so I won't say anything more now. One of the key sections on our webpage, which you get to by searching Lancashire Early Years Support and Training, is our safeguarding section that's kept regularly updated by Catherine and several other colleagues within the team. If you haven't had a good look around that section of the website, then I would really urge you to do so. It's again a real bank of resources for you to use to really strengthen your safeguarding practices in your setting. And there's this absolutely fantastic tool within section 6 around focus on briefings, which is a little bit of a deeper dive into certain aspects of safeguarding that are really useful to use as discussion prompts with whole members of your team, and to build that knowledge and to keep safeguarding at the forefront of everybody's minds. On our YouTube channel, you'll find a little section called the Power of Pictures, our pop section. And these are collections, Pecha Kucha style, around different topics for you to watch and share with your staff team. Again, it will be great to look at these as a whole staff team and then discuss them together and think about what that means for your setting, and if there are any key messages you want to really take on board and move forwards with. They all last 6 minutes 40 seconds, so each slide is 20 seconds long, so the really effective, clear way of sharing key messages more widely. On our website, that you can find by searching Lancashire Early Years Support and Training, you'll see a section about the Early Years Professional Development Centre, and at the bottom of that web page there is the link to all of the previous enhancements that we've undertaken at the centre over the last few years. So if you are focusing on a particular area of learning and development, or are currently auditing your enabling environments indoors and outdoors across the age range, that is a great tool to go and have a look at some of the past suggestions and think about why those things are in place, and how those resources are supporting children's learning. So do have a look and make use of those previous enhancements. Coming in at number 8 then, we've now got Laura and Jane talking to us about parents and the home learning environment.
So here are some updates for parents. And first of all, I just wanted to show you this brand new publication, which is now available through our publications page, and the link is on the screen there. So this parental engagement toolkit has been designed to store a wealth of tools and ready-made resources to help strengthen parental engagement and the home learning environment. So some of the time-saving resources you will find inside the toolkit include several audit tools to help review your current practice and plan for next steps. Lots of ideas for parent information boards, parent spaces, lots of photographs in there from different settings to give you some ideas to implement in your own setting. And there's a range of parent information leaflets with advice for bedtime routine, toilet training, things like that. There's lots of chat, play, read ideas, support for characteristics of effective teaching and learning at home. There's even an example calendar to help you plan parent events. There's also when you do order this publication, you'll get access to a Padlet. You can see a screenshot to that on the right hand side of the screen there, where this stores a range of the research and websites and tools to support parental engagement in your setting. So please do have a look at that. And I've seen lots of lovely parent spaces on recent visits, so I just wanted to share some of these here as well with you. You can see there's lending libraries, home loan bags, walk and talk packs, even paper bags that parents can take away. They might have prompts for home learning or key messages and resources as well for parents to try and support their child's learning at home. You can see that there's parent information boards as well with key information. It might be about how to keep their child safe. it might have information about local support through family hubs and CFW as well. So do have a think about any spaces in your setting and whether you can implement any of these ideas.
At number 7, we have Kim talking to us about equality, diversity and inclusive practice in your settings.
Welcome to this term's update. Last term in the update we looked at equality, diversity and inclusion. So again we're going to be thinking about inclusion for all our children. So how can we ensure that we provide the best for every child who walks through our door? So let's have a think about mirrors and windows. So you might want to take a moment to have a look at your setting and then consider are all your children, their families and your community reflected within your setting? Can your children see themselves reflected? As soon as they walk through the door, do they get that sense of belonging? Do they get a virtual hug from the resources in your setting? So are resources within the home corner, for example, representative of your children and their culture and their heritage? So do you have food or maybe food packaging that all children are familiar with? What about picture books? Do you have picture books that depict familiar families, familiar hairstyles or skin colour? Are characters found within these picture books representative of your children and their families? Or do your books that you have only represent children as being from different countries? Penny's book, I Wonder What Aisha is Doing, is a lovely picture book that represents a young girl from a South Asian heritage. So how wonderful to have that book out within your book corner for children to have a look at and see themselves within that book, to see their skin tone represented and reflected. Now think about windows. So this is how we introduce our children to new learning, to new experiences and the wider world. Children need to become aware of different cultures and the different cultures and heritages of their setting and their community. So you need to think about how you can build upon children's experiences and reflect them within your setting. So allow all children to see and learn about different cultures in a general context as they play. Provide children with rich experiences that they may or may never have. For example, if you have chopsticks, and that these chopsticks are mostly packed away in a box labelled multicultural food and resources, and they're only brought out for a special Let's Learn About Chinese New Year, what message does that send to the children who use those chopsticks on a day-to-day basis? So instead, consider having those resources out within your home corner or within other areas of provision to enable all children to learn through their play in a more general context. So let's open up the world to them. So celebrate children and families, build upon what they already know and can do, whilst also introducing them to new opportunities and new experiences. It really is a very exciting time to have. We have talked about transitions for all children, but especially Lancashire's most disadvantaged, vulnerable children before. As it is the start of a new year, now is a good time to once again revisit and reflect and adapt upon your transition processes. What worked well last year? What are the needs of the current cohort of children? And do you have some children within your cohort who struggle with transitions or have experienced trauma and change? So now is the time to start planning and working with your many feeder skills to ensure that these children are fully supported. Transitions need to be seen as a continual event rather than a one-off process in the latter part of the summer term. So we need to see transitions as a three-step process, a journey along the road. So we have the universal, the targeted and the specialist events. So universal transition support. So this needs to be seen as good practice, similar to the communication language and the behaviour roadmap. Universal is good for every child. Then we have the targeted transition support. So this is about having a more targeted approach to transitions, focusing on those children for example, who may be eligible for early years pupil premium. Many of our disadvantaged children, as do others, find change unsettling, difficult and challenging. So we really now need to think about how we support those children and what support mechanisms we can put in place to prepare them for these key transitions. And this might actually be not only transition from setting to primary school, but from room to room, or those day-to-day transitions that our children will experience. And then finally, we have the specialist transition support. As is the case with the targeted support, settings need to really identify children who may need specialist support as early as possible. So those children who may have an additional need, who may have an education, health and care plan already in place, or for those children who are known to Children's Social Services. For these children, multi-agency transition meetings need to take place early where vital information is shared.
As I mentioned earlier, we do have a learning walk planned this term on the 26th of February between 6:30 and 8 p.m. at Bookshaw Village Nursery. So there's no need to book a place, but do come along and have a look at the really inspirational areas, spaces, places, indoors and outdoors for children from birth right to school age, and the staff team there will undertake learning walks with us in each of those age phase rooms. So that's a great opportunity to come along with your whole staff team to have a look and chat to staff. At number 5, we've got the prime areas of learning and development. So Julie's going to provide us with some updates on communication and language, Penny on personal, social and emotional development, and Laura will give us some updates on physical development.
Hello, this term for communication and language we're going to look at questions. In the last cluster, Hayley mentioned Ofsted and some of their findings regarding questioning in settings. They found that there was poor quality and substance to a lot of questions, too many questions, questions that don't offer children chance to give deep replies and really encourage that sustained shared thinking. We now have a whole suite of communication and language modules available for you to watch, and there is a dedicated module all about questions. So it might be that you want to purchase that and have a look at the questions module. In the meantime, here are some tips that you might find helpful. So when we're asking children questions, think about whether it actually needs to be a question. Would a comment achieve the same outcome? Check that you have the child's interest and attention before you ask a question. Allow plenty of time for a child to respond. Tailor your questions according to the language level of a child. Children who are new to English or have delayed language may need questions that are a little bit simpler. Observe children's body language. Look out for signs of them feeling anxious if you're asking them a question. You might remember a child's interests or experiences from a previous day and use questions to help make links between information and activities. Think about how you can get children to share more information with you so it becomes a discussion and doesn't feel like a question and answer session. You'll also see over time how different children respond to questions and what works well for them. It's just as important to ask babies and toddlers questions. Their response might be a single sound or a babble, but it can help make connections between items and the words that describe them. For example, asking questions such as, "Are these your shoes? Your red shoes?" Or "Where are your shoes?" and showing children their shoes. Questions can also help introduce new vocabulary. We also need to encourage the children to ask questions. So here are a few suggestions. The first one is a question box or a jar. Compose a series of questions to start the children off and then encourage the children to add their own questions as well. When there's a spare moment, reach for a question from the jar. You might have objects of provocation. Display a resource, a photograph or an artifact and pose questions about its origin or its use. Perhaps discuss issues in the news and ask questions such as, who lives at 10 Downing Street? What's their job? Consider using a puppet who is full of questions and likes to hear the children's questions too. Remember, all children will have experiences and interests that form part of their cultural capital. They are experts too. So get the children to ask questions of an expert. It might be about their favourite football team. Claire Warden's book, Talking and Thinking Floorbooks, encourages the use of questions to consult children in planning the curriculum. Talking tubs stimulate observation, discussion and questioning, and the floorbooks are used to record children's questions and lines of enquiry.
Hello everyone, I'm Penny Watson and this is the Personal, Social and Emotional Development Update. I thought this time you'd be really interested in this video. I was. It's called That's Not Fair. So how many times have you heard the children say that? That's not fair, or it's not fair. And certainly if you've got your own children, you hear that on quite a regular basis. Well, round about the age of 4, children are beginning to understand that concept of fairness, but they need teaching it. They need to hear you talking out loud and narrating what you're doing and saying why you've made those decisions that you have done and why you've thought about the fairness for everybody in the group. And Nicola has a little activity here which is quite interesting. She focused on quite a few different skills, but the children are working at quite a high level and really working through their thoughts on fairness. So enjoy watching the video. You can access it through the QR code or through the blue web link down below. So on this slide, I've focused on children's mental health and well-being. And there are some new documents and some new areas on websites for you to explore on the Education Endowment Foundation website and also the Help for Early Years providers. The first one is a document called Supporting Children's Mental Health and Wellbeing in the Early Years. It has practical examples of how practitioners can support children in this area. It's a tricky area to get our heads around, an often very sensitive area, isn't it? A strong emphasis is on the importance of key person and group times. And as we move down to the second bullet point, that's the Help for Early Years Providers website. And there is a section just on children's mental health. But it helps practitioners to identify children's changes in their behaviour and identifying when a child will need more support with their mental health and their well-being. It looks at all early years stages and ranges from babies right through to reception class. So enjoy exploring these websites. Thank you.
So here are some updates for physical development. And this is a new downloadable resource from the Education Endowment Foundation, the EEF, which presents what research evidence tells us about supporting physical development in the early years. The EEF's evidence-based early years toolkit shows that physical development approaches may also benefit children's cognitive development. And it also mentions the link between the close links between physical development and children's emotions as well, and their emotional regulation and well-being. There's several approaches outlined in this resource, and these are highlighted there on the screen, and also there is a link to a summary of these if you want to look in further detail. And here I thought I'd share some ideas for supporting children's sensory needs. So I've just highlighted the article from last term's Spotlight magazine that was written by Judith, and it's all about why our sensory systems are so important to physical development, and she goes into the detail about the 8 sensory systems. So if you're not already familiar with those further 3 internal senses, they are the vestibular system, which is linked to balance and movement, proprioceptive system, which is like our internal body map and gives us a sense of where our body starts and ends, and the interoceptive system, which is our awareness of what's happening inside our bodies. So whether we're hot or cold or hungry or thirsty, for example. On the right hand side of the screen there's some useful tools to support children's sensory processing needs, and some practical ideas that you can use in your setting as well, particularly when children may be under or over responsive to sensory input. So please do have a look at those further resources to help support children's sensory needs.
At number 4, the specific areas of learning and development. So we've got Jill talking to us about early literacy, Sarah on mathematical development, Rachel on understanding the world, and Kathy will give us some updates on expressive arts and design.
Hi, my name is Jill Anderton, and this term I'm looking at green screen technology as a way of adding excitement and fun to literacy activities in the early years. Green screen apps are an easy way to enhance vocabulary as well as providing fun ways to explore oral storytelling. A key factor in any early learning, but especially literacy, is fun. Having something to say not only gives the opportunity to develop vocabulary, it can also inspire early mark making. Having something to say is a prime driver in young children drawing and mark making. The 2 green screen apps I've chosen are Chromavid and Doink, and you can see the QR codes on the screen. Chromavid is a great introduction to green screen technology and one of the simplest to use. The whole process is 3 steps. So you choose your colour, select your background or video, and then you shoot your video, and that's it. You can share the video straight from the app. Doink has the same 3 steps and also gives the option to edit before you save, and you can share Doink on different platforms, which can be useful if you want to share things with your parents. There's a wide range and diversity of backdrops on both of these apps. They both suit different developmental and confidence levels, and you can really get to see children's creativity and imaginations when they've mastered those few simple steps to capturing themselves and their friends on screen. Green screen technology is great for introducing characters from stories, retelling familiar stories. Maybe children creating their own stories is one of the nicest ones to watch. You can innovate or enhance known stories with children's own ideas just by providing a range of different props, hats, glasses, puppets, etc. They give opportunities for children to create their own performances. That might be singing, it might be poetry, it might be dancing, but all of these things are interlinked with literacy. We can use props related to learning which encourage children to show what they've understood. And we can use maybe dressing up as characters to act out their roles, which will tell us a little bit more about what children have understood about characters in the stories. Green screen technology is versatile and can be used in different ways with children or small world characters or puppets. The use is only limited by our imaginations. Top tips would include providing a green screen, whether that's large or small. They can be made from any material, fabric, card, shower curtains, or even plastic tablecloths. Attach green screens securely, as there's likely to be lots of movement around the area. If you're using a large-scale green screen, adhesive hooks are good, and glue and staples are good on smaller areas. And whether it's a large or a small area, make sure the green covers an area large enough to accommodate movement. Make sure the green screen is flat and wrinkle free, because any wrinkles will show on the screen as a crease or a dark area. Make sure that any screen is placed where there's plenty of good lighting, preferably natural light. If you are using artificial lights or lamps, then just watch out for shadows. Make sure there is as much space as possible between the subject, so that would be the child and the green screen, or the small world characters and the green screen, or the puppets and the green screen. And finally, don't wear green clothing or colours to avoid parts disappearing as they blend with the green screen, and don't wear busy patterns on your clothes to avoid pixelated images due to the busyness of the patterns. I hope you're inspired to have a go. Simply download a green screen app onto your phone or your iPad or tablet. Add props and backdrops to stimulate and excite your children's imaginations, and then let the fun begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Wallace and I am the Maths Lead within our team. As part of this term's mathematical update, I'd like to share some information about our new instant access webinars that now link to our mathematical training. So these instant access CPD sessions can be purchased at your own specified date, so you can decide when it will be really convenient for you to access those recordings, and then you get those sessions for a 2-week period where you can watch them as many times as you would like to really embed those key messages and revisit that learning, and obviously you can watch them at a time that is convenient to you. They're really great value because they have been recorded in distinct chapters, so for each of those 3 sessions displayed on our screen you will get links to 4 separate webinars to allow you to have bite-sized moments of mathematical CPD, and that means that you're also getting breadth of sort of learning to support your own subjects specific knowledge in terms of mathematics. If you've been on any of my training before, you'll know that I love to make sure that I can share practical and hands-on suggestions to make sure that mathematics is purposeful and meaningful, and that sort of trend and that theme has continued within our mathematical webinars. So you will find as part of those sessions there's clips of me talking through a wealth of practical resources and also a tour of our mathematical displays and our core provision at our Early Years Special Development Centre in Accrington. I've included a QR code for each of the sessions on the slide and an overview of what those chapters cover, so you can see a little bit more detail about each of those separate sessions. So for our Maths at Play for under 3s, you will receive an introductory webinar, and then we will focus upon spatial awareness, noticing and comparison, so really looking at how that sameness and difference really lays the foundations of many early concepts for our babies, toddlers and 2-year-olds, and there's a chapter there on developing children's early experiences of number. In our Maths Through Continuous Revision for 3 to 5-year-olds, you'll again have an introductory session which shares the key messages but also talks you through that educational programme. So if we know it's really important we keep coming back to that sort of statutory mathematical sort of overview, and we will talk you through some of the meanings of those key words so that you can feel much more confident at articulating your practice. And then there are chapters linked to developing mathematically rich routines and sort of daily events. There's a chapter on an environment tour where we will look at how we can further develop permanent opportunities for mathematics in your core provision, and then a chapter on mathematical mark making. And then our final webinar that's available at the moment is Developing Shape, Space and Measure, which again looks at 3 to 5-year-olds. And within this session you'll get an introduction and then specific chapters on shape, space and measure, so you can really have that focus on each distinct concept to extend your training and sort of your wealth of knowledge. Let's now give you a taster of some of those extracts from our webinar. So I'm going to look at the concept of shape in more detail, and I'm going to share some information that is included in our Developing Shape, Space and Measure webinar for you too.
Let's now talk about some of the ways in which we can support children to develop their knowledge of shape. So we know that it's really important that we give lots of opportunities for movement, for conversation, for exploration and manipulation. Children need to have that hands-on experience of shape to be able to really make sure that they've got that visual sort of image within their head when we talk about specific shapes. Remember, it's much more important that we really emphasize the properties of shape, not just the name. So for example, when we look at our 3D shape, obviously adults will be modelling that this is a cylinder, so children do have that exposure to the name, but more importantly we want children to know what you can do with a cylinder. So cylinders are brilliant in block play because they roll and they're great for utilising when we want to build a vehicle. So it's that wider knowledge, to always keep that in mind. Make sure we're modelling those properties alongside the names of the shapes. Think about as well the images and how you're depicting those shapes within your environment. Just be mindful, most of our sort of standardized kits, so our little wooden blocks, these are more our 2D type of shapes. These types of shape kits often only show us the best versions of a shape, and what I mean by that, if we think about our triangle, I mean the equilateral triangle. So most of them, you've got a little example there, a smaller version. Most of our kits will show it in that format, which is fine. We need to have that exposure, but just be aware that if children are only seeing this type of equilateral triangle, they're going to just visualize that all triangles have to look like this, whereas the properties of triangles that it's got those 3 points and it's got those 3 sides. So make sure you're having a mixture of color, of size, of orientation, so that then they realize that then even one of our isosceles triangles or our right angle triangles all are within that same group. A nice example actually of showing one shape in different colours, different orientations and different angles is our book Green Lizards versus Red Rectangles. It's by Steve Anthony. It's not actually a mathematical book, it's one that looks at conflict resolution, so it's quite a nice one for our PSCD as well. But I just love the illustrations, they are so mathematically rich. Let me show you one. So if we look at this particular image here, so all the shapes are rectangles, but look how many different ways and at different angles we're depicting it. We've got short narrow ones, long narrow ones, wide, them at different angles, different rotations. Having that imagery around and having children exposed to those is going to mean that they've got that wider viewpoint of what a shape actually looks like in practice. So yeah, it's a good top tip there for you as well.
As part of the follow-up support materials within our Developing Shape, Space and Measure recorded webinar, you'll also be able to access a concept overview for shape. So this isn't new information, it's been collated from the Birth to 5 Matters document, but what we've done is we've sort of got any reference to shape in that document across the ranges and put it all together so it's on one document so that you can see at a glance how that concept will develop over time. If you'd like to find out any more information about the concept of shape in a bit more detail to further support that important mathematical subject knowledge, I've included a QR code on the slide that will take you to an interesting article about what children need to know in order to have a good knowledge of shape, and this is being developed by the Development and Research in Early Maths Education website.
So for this term's Understanding the World update, I wanted to share with you some online safety resources that I think will be useful for your settings and for your families. Firstly, the NSBCC have just launched Techosaurus, their new online safety dinosaur, which is designed to help families to have conversations about staying safe online. Techosaurus is aimed at little ones who are starting to use technology and the internet, and it keeps the conversation around online safety positive. Techosaurus will help children to form healthy online habits, routines and behaviours from a young age and build basic knowledge and skills related to online safety. You can access the Techosaurus pack using the link on this slide or on the NSPCC website. There is a suggested donation for you to buy the pack, but parents can do that, or you can buy it and then share it online for families as well. I also wanted to share with you a series of videos created by Internet Matters alongside EE. And it's called Online Safety Starts Early, which is a 4-episode series created for parents, carers and educators of children in early years. Teaching children to problem solve and to think carefully about their actions already starts young. Staying safe online is no different. So the video series teaches parents, carers and educators of early years children how to introduce good digital habits, such as balancing device use, teaching toddlers basic mindfulness like recognising when it's time for a break, setting children's devices up for safe and happy use through a range of parental controls and tools, and normalising daily conversations and check-ins to create an open space for chat about online safety as children grow. So you can access these videos at this link on the slide here or on the Internet Matters website. I think they're really useful, they're free to share, you can use them on your social media, on your website, or you could set up a QR code that parents could scan in your welcome area. But it's about making sure that you as a setting are comfortable talking to families about how to keep children safe online, and you know where to go to get more support as well. And then I also wanted to share with you some lovely new books that I found which will help you to support your understanding the world teaching, particularly when it comes to thinking about map skills. So Martha Maps It Out and Martha Maps It Out in Time by Lee Hodgkinson are some really great stories which will help support children to understand the world around them, issues like scale and labelling, and start to think about how they might develop their own maps. So Martha, the main character, loves to draw maps, and she uses those maps to make sense of the world around her. So in Martha Maps It Out, she starts out in outer space, and then she goes down, zooming closer and closer, so it goes in towards her inner world. So there's a map of planet Earth, a map of the city that she lives in, the tower block that she lives in, and her own bedroom. And then finally, there's even a map of herself, which I think is a really interesting touch, with all the thoughts and dreams that make her special and unique. And in the book, there's lots of beautifully illustrated maps, but also lots of really factual and quirky detailed labels, which develop Martha's own perspective, which children might like to do when they think about their communities, their local environments, and their inner worlds as well. So they can be some great skills for you to develop. And then Martha Maps It Out in Time takes the reader through the history of the Earth, including a roadmap of the different evolutionary eras on Earth as well. So these are two really great stories which will help your children to develop their understanding of the world around them, both in terms of geography and in terms of history, but also that personal, social, emotional development and that idea of communities and people of different cultures. But it's all about exploring the world around them. So I hope that you find those useful.
Hello, I'm Kathy Baygott. Following on from the last two terms' expressive arts top tips, this term I want us to think about the adult role when supporting children to sing. It's really normal and instinctive for people to sing. Children make sing-song noises and copy sounds right from birth, so the more parents, families and nurseries sing, the more children will sing. You can tell when you walk into a nursery if practitioners sing regularly because you'll hear the children humming and singing wherever they are. This is good for many reasons, so please let's encourage it. Singing with young children is important to support the development of speech, language, motor skills, listening skills, social interactions, and to create a sense of security. Teaching a wide range of songs and rhymes and nursery rhymes will support children to tune into and to explore elements of music. If you sing with your children will sing. So here are some simple takeaway tips to keep in mind while you're singing with your children. Use songs and sing everywhere. Everybody can sing unless their vocal mechanism is damaged. Sing with enthusiasm and with energy. I promise children won't judge your voice. So make singing sessions fun. Encourage them to really join in. Try to sing about subjects that are relevant to and fun for the children. So think about the words. Are they meaningful for your children? Teach songs standing up and moving in time to the song. So, for example, oh, the grand old Duke of York, he had 10,000 men. It's so much easier to sing if you march to it. Keep to your usual ratios if absolutely possible. Our ratios are there for a reason, so whenever possible, stick to them. When you're making music or when you're singing. It makes a singing session so much easier if either you have a small group or if you have more children and an extra adult who's enthusiastically joining in. Play group games with small groups of children who've chosen to join you. Make simple songs up using 3 notes. So, to start with, when you're first making songs up, it's really simple and really easy to have just 3 notes. You might use chime bars to do that. So I've got 3 notes here. I've got an E and an A and a an E and a G and an A. So E, G, A. This will help you not to sing too high or too low. These are around about the right place for children. They're a bit high for me, but they're round about the right place for the children, and that will encourage the children and help the children to tune in to your singing. So make your own songs up and encourage the children to do the same. Your songs can be really, really simple. So, for example, if you're painting splodges, you might sing splodge, 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 splodge. You might sing about the weather. What's the weather like? It's raining and it's pouring. Let's get our coats on and go out to play. Just have fun really with words. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. It doesn't even matter if you can't remember the same song again. You'll get, the more you practice and the more you practice singing your own songs and making them up, it just becomes fun, and you don't have to worry about it too much. Where possible, personalise songs to include the child's name. They love it if their name's in it. Try singing to repeated routines. So, for example, when you're tidying up, you might sing, let's put the bricks away, put the bricks away, let's put the bricks away, it's time to tidy up. And I bet you've all got a good hello song and a goodbye song. So, hello Rory, how are you today? Hello Rory, it's time to go and play. Try and keep group sessions short, so no more than a few minutes maximum. Leave the children wanting more. Allow children to leave the activity if their concentration has gone. We want singing to be fun, and if children see children and adults having fun, they often want to join in. But if they've lost concentration and they're being made to say, the fun goes away. And then give children chance to sing songs over and over again. You can also always put props or leave puppets or an illustrated song card in the area that you've been after you've been introducing or using a song with a group of children. You might have simple song cues in your song box or your song bag. Here I've got my song bucket here, and I've got all sorts of little puppets in it or little cues. So I've got Twinkle Twinkle Little Star there, I've got Incy Wincy Spider there, and I've got Bar Bar Black Sheep there. That's a little finger puppet. You might want to put these in the continuous provision so that they can have a go with them and have a try with them. You can also record the song so that the children can play it over and over and over again.
At number 3, we've got Hayley talking to us about some of the updates and threads of thinking that have emerged from our most recent Ofsted inspections across the county through the autumn term.
Welcome to the Ofsted inspection update. Once again, we've been looking in depth at reports from childminders, daycare settings, schools and out-of-school clubs to feed back on trends and some commonly noted aspects by inspectors. As always, it's important to note that this information should be used to inform your self-reflection processes, and it doesn't warrant any dramatic changes. Quality practice and provision grows from consistency and regular reflecting and reviewing. When making changes, they should be done to improve outcomes for children and your family, and not for the purposes of an inspection. We have been following up with managers, leaders and childminders following their inspections, and the feedback continues to be positive, with well-being of those being inspected very much at the forefront of priorities. If you pause the slide, you can see some extracts as to what has been shared. In our discussions with the sector, it has been commonly shared that there has been a great deal of emphasis on learning walks, and how these are forming an integral part of the inspection, and that this is where key information is gleaned. Settings have shared that some of them have used notes and had clipboards to ensure that they've covered everything that they wanted to show the inspector. There's also been lots of feedback that staff are being spoken to very much in depth, and that safeguarding questions are around assessing staff knowledge of the local community, the demographics and the associated vulnerabilities. There's also been a specific focus on the recruitment and induction process, with newest members of the team being asked to share their journey so far. Another key thread in feedback from the sector is how well you and your team can demonstrate an understanding of your curriculum and talk about your intent and rationale. Inspectors are noting skill progression and making reference to curriculums being ambitious and sequenced. The Education Inspection Framework clearly outlines how inspectors will make each of the inspection judgments and what information must be taken into consideration and evaluated. However, there are often key themes or buzzwords that appear more frequently and more prominently. We have looked at every report published from Lancashire early years settings, and the top 10 threads are shown on the screen now. These threads appear to have been more explored, celebrated or noted in more detail this term. Where practice or provision has been less thorough, actions for further development have been given. The most common areas for actions across the county in all sectors have related to communication and language, CPD, parents as partners and the curriculum. Communication and language development is such a high priority in all settings, so it's no surprise that inspectors are keen to feedback as to how this can be improved and strengthened. There has been a lot of focus on staff interactions and in particular how they ask questions. The most common downfall is children not being given enough time to respond to questions or being asked another question in quick succession. This could be attributed to nerves on the actual day of the inspection, but it might also be due to lack of awareness. Modelling correct vocabulary and instances where practitioners have used blanket statements such as "can you pass it" or "can you get them," rather than extending vocabulary and saying "can you pass me the car" and "can you find me the giraffe," for example. And finally, it seems to be a common downfall in practitioners not seizing opportunities to extend language or encourage conversation by either asking closed questions or not responding effectively to those back and forth exchanges with children. In actions around CPD, these fall into two distinct sub-areas: supervisions, coaching and feedback, and the lack of precise and specific feedback. Reports have noticed how staff are unaware of the things that they need to do to strengthen their own individual practice. Supervisions are being woolly and generic. The second theme around CPD being documented and undertaken, but doesn't actually support the gaps or weaknesses in practice, which goes hand in hand with what we've just mentioned. Because if supervisions aren't being precise or giving staff clear enough goals or targets, they're not going to be provided with the opportunities to do something about it. Reports make reference to mandatory training and whole staff team training, but not necessarily those individual specific learning opportunities. Regarding parents as partners, the actions in this area are really clear. They all focus upon systems and procedures not being in place to share ways or support parents in extending learning at home. Inspections have picked up on strong partnerships and parents speaking highly of the providers. However, when explored further into the ways in which they are supported in extending their child's learning at home, this has been less evident. Inspectors have noticed how this impacts upon children building upon what they already know and can do, and in managing parents' awareness of developmental expectations and milestones. Looking at actions around the curriculum, these are quite varied, but key actions are in line with the sector's feedback in that inspectors are looking at sequencing and skill progression and how the intended curriculum doesn't always follow the stages and steps in which children learn. There's been reference to knowing the building blocks that children need to acquire knowledge and build upon this. Other inspectors have noted the implementation not being linked to children's next steps, which again goes back to knowing children and building upon what they already know and can do. Other actions reference the need for a sequenced curriculum and staff understanding as to what comes before and next in terms of child development. Moving on to things that are being done well. Last term we had some great recognition in areas such as independence, well-being, supporting sound and physical development. This term there's been much celebration and recognition given to the themes that are on the screen right now. And when done well, these appear to have positively contributed to those good and outstanding judgments. Attitudes and behaviour have really featured prominently across all settings. There is a clear thread in the reports. In daycare settings, there's been much emphasis on children knowing what is expected of them. The reports have talked about routines, staff having high expectations, and this being evident through daily routines and interactions. There's been a clear focus on settings having clear boundaries and staff being role models and supporting children to manage and modify their behaviour. In childminder settings, the focus has been upon the childminders themselves being positive role models who have clear boundaries and rules. The reports detail themes around children being encouraged and supported to have respect, patience and tolerance towards each other. There is a common thread in children being encouraged to use manners, take turns and share resources, and lots of notes about being consistent too. There's references to how a calming atmosphere helps children to make good progress. In Out of School Club, the reports note the atmosphere and the vibe of the club, referencing calm and respectful atmospheres. The reports talk about children's understanding and demonstrating the rules of the club and supporting each other, especially the older ones, to support the younger ones through buddy systems. In schools, common themes have been around respect and giving this to one another, and show how positive behaviour and engagement are linked to minimal disruption and maximum learning opportunities. Community in the world is something that appears to be on the rise in terms of clear themes and threads. In daycare settings, the common themes explore children being supported to understand their wider community, and in settings having well-established links with the community. There are many references to children knowing about similarities and differences and what makes them unique. There isn't much specific reference in particular to celebrations, but there is in terms of widening children's understanding of culture, heritage and diversity through songs, visitors and foods. It's clear that children knowing their local community and being involved in initiatives, along with having an awareness of others, is much more valuable. In childminder reports, there is a lot of reference into children learning about festivals, religion, culture, diversity, and so on. There is a common thread which looks at meaningful opportunities and life experiences that the childminder provides for children to learn about the world in which they live. References to trips and libraries, churches, temples, going on buses and to rural locations, and how these contribute to children's sense of self and their place in their community. The thread of knowing what makes them unique, similar and different is also woven into these. In Out of School Clubs, all reports make reference to children being supported to know and understand similarities and differences, and they make references to life in modern Britain. In schools, the clear thread of reports is linked to pupils showing respect and tolerance to other faiths and religions, and having secure knowledge of the British values, which prepares them well for life in modern Britain. Some common thread in reports, particularly in childminders and daycare settings, is how well we support mathematical development. In daycare settings, good practice has been noted for those who have seamlessly woven mathematical learning into daily activities and provision. The reports talk about how staff mention how many and quantities and compare and sort as part of daily routines, including snack times and lunch times. They talk about children being exposed to maths in a fun and exciting way. In childminder reports, there's been many references to early counting skills, building and spatial reasoning, and again that thread of seamlessly weaving mathematical learning into daily experiences. Something we all know that is important is the attachments and positive relationships and key person systems, and these are coming under particular scrutiny in inspections. In daycare settings, inspectors have particularly noted how well staff get to know children and their families, and have been linking this to providing consistency and continuity of care. Key threads have also explored how children's interests are captured and then fed into the implementation aspect in order to maximise levels of engagement and learning opportunities. Inspectors comment on secure attachment and effective key person systems which ensure children to feel not only safe and secure, but valued and have that sense of belonging. In childminder inspections, reports note how information is gathered from families to support settling in and getting to know the children. Childminders have been credited with knowing their children well and intuitively responding to their needs, whether that's hunger, thirst, or particular learning needs. There's also key threads around knowing children well, so that intervention exercises can be applied in a timely manner to help close any gaps that may emerge. Out-of-school club reports pay attention to the links and partnerships that are formed with the school and families, and how this information is used to support children at the club. These two also talk about using this information to plan and provide activities of interest and relevance and support their learning needs too. I hope that you found some of this information useful. Consider how you can use this to inform your self-reflection systems and strengthen your existing practice. Do not make any knee-jerk changes. Any adaptations to the way you work and operate need to be done for the children to improve outcomes and help all children in Lancashire to aspire, achieve and shine.
At number 2, we have Catherine giving us some really important updates and information around safeguarding children.
Hi and welcome to the Safeguarding Update with me, Catherine. Just one message really to share with you this time, and that is the area of neglect. To say that neglect remains high in Lancashire, and it is higher than the national average, and unfortunately been that way for quite a long time. The Safeguarding Partnership are wanting us to share the messages widely of the importance of providing early help to families. The slide here just gives a little bit of context specifically for Lancashire and the impact of neglect, with the focus being very much on referrals for early help support, so that's at level 2 and 3 on the continuum of need, linking in with wider agencies like health visitors, Home Start, Children and Family Wellbeing Service with the family hubs. It also features highly, unfortunately, when we move up the continuum of need to level 4, statutory support and referrals into children's social care, where neglect is very much a feature. And then obviously at the very top end, when we're looking at child protection concerns, 30% of children on a child protection plan are there because there's an element of neglect in the parenting. Lancashire is a very diverse county. Many children are living in very complex families. There is high rates of poverty, and as it says on the slide, although we can't equate poverty with neglect, poverty does mean that it's harder to manage sometimes if we're living in a home which is possibly damp, or we don't have the resources to buy a bed, or our parental mental health is very fragile. All of that can impact on parenting and maybe result in neglect. We recognise in Lancashire that the pandemic has a significant impact for many children and families, and as we all know, we're still feeling the impact really of that now. So austerity, struggling to manage financially, unemployment, mental health, just the basic day-to-day living, high use of food banks, etc. All of this will impact on parenting capacity. Some of the things that you may notice may seem quite insignificant or low level, but without support, they can quickly escalate into something a little bit bigger. So on the screen now are themes that come up from phone conversations that I've had with settings, and just general indicators of possible vulnerabilities that may suggest neglect, and would deserve further inquiry if we were noticing any of these. Even just asking parents, are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help? And for us, maybe knowing what support is available locally that we can signpost families onto, getting to know our local family hub, who they are, what they mean, what they can provide. They are there as a one-stop shop for support to families within communities. And in terms of how you can help families, it really is about knowing families really well, being there to offer help and support, being proactive, knowing what support is available locally, so it isn't just on our shoulders to be providing all of that help to families. Routinely use the Working Well document, because at the back of that it has the threshold guidance, so indicators of what we might see at each of the 4 levels of need. It isn't a tick list, it isn't a booklet where we have to have 3 ticks and that means that we provide some support. Any of the indicators in there mean that we should be thinking of support at each particular level. Access the Children's Safeguarding Assurance Partnership website. That's been updated. It's all Lancashire specific now. We can sign up for their monthly newsletter, so obviously that has all the latest information that would be of value to us. Get to know our local areas, maybe within a 4-mile radius of our setting, what support is out there. We can signpost families onto. That in itself is early help. Learning who is at our family hubs, reaching out for support from our community senior leads at the family hubs. They can provide advice and support to us directly as well. Home Start are great for families. They're informal, they're a charity, they're volunteers, so families like them. They can do home visits and provide practical support to families. There is Graded Care Profile 2 training, which is a focus all about neglect. It's being rolled out widely across all of Lancashire. Your safeguarding leads could sign up for that. It's free, being delivered by Children and Family Wellbeing Service, and each individual agency will soon have trainers who can deliver specifically to their sector. There's a booklet or document by the NSPCC, which is good to have a little overview of, called Too Little Too Late, and that comes up with some suggestions to government really of changes that we might want to explore to reduce neglect more widely. And finally, we have a neglect to focus on in our safeguarding part of our early years website that is available to you. So any support you can provide early on is the best support to families in reducing neglect more widely. Thank you.
Finally, at number 1, I would like to talk to you as we finish off around the dandelions and orchids theory, and how you can really think about how that could influence your approach in supporting any child who might need an extra little bit of help in order to really aspire, achieve and shine in your setting. So not just our children eligible for early years pupil premium, anybody within your setting who might just need an extra little bit of support. I really find this image helpful when thinking about children within our setting who might need a little bit more help. We've probably, most of us traditionally, supported certain children within our group in a different way, given them a little bit of a different offer, or maybe even taken them out of the session for a little bit of time, working on particular intervention, support or strategies. But as this image shows, maybe we need to think a little bit differently on how we support some children within our settings. So here on the slide we've got a ramp that's full of snow, and the gentleman there in the picture is trying to clear the steps, but there's somebody in a wheelchair at the bottom pointing out that actually if you left the steps but cleared the ramp, everybody could go up that way. So that's real food for thought, which I'll explain a little bit more on the next slide. The dandelion and orchid theory then is relatively new, but saying that, there is a whole wealth of information available about this theory. So if you do want to find out more, then just search online. You'll find lots of information, and there's also some great books focused completely on the dandelion and orchid theory, which I would really recommend that you have a look at as well. But I'll try and do a bit of a synopsis of the theory for you. So the theory is that your group of children that you're working with, each individual child could be likened to a dandelion or an orchid, and everyone within your class group will be either a dandelion or an orchid. And the idea is that most children within your group will be likened to dandelions in that they come to you strong, resilient, they're thriving in all conditions, and they're learning really well. Some children within your setting could be likened to orchids, and these are children who can thrive equally as well as the dandelions, but they need particular conditions in order to thrive, to be in place for them. So they aren't going to thrive anywhere and grow strong and resilient in any conditions like your dandelion children will. Your orchid children need very specific conditions in order to thrive. And I'm sure as I'm talking, you'll have particular children already coming to mind that you know you've got to make sure it's quiet when the children come in. They've got particular routines that they favour, that you support them with. They'll only want to sit next to certain children and can't really concentrate in particular areas or with particular groupings. All sorts of connotations we could come up with, but these are children that do need specific things to be in place in order for them to thrive. So let's have a little think about that then. What most of us have probably done when we're thinking about our orchid children, me included, is that we've catered our routines of the day, our group activities, our focus learning, our planning around our dandelion children, and then tried to adapt that for our orchid children. Whereas what the dandelion and orchid theory is suggesting is that we turn that approach completely around, because our dandelion children are going to grow and thrive and learn and develop well in any conditions. So the suggestion is that if we focus all of our approach around our orchid children, so cater our routines of the day, the way we approach small group times, the way we approach adult-led activities and experiences, and how we support free play, how we set up our enabling environments. If we focus that completely on our orchid children, then that will also meet the needs of our dandelion children, because they are going to learn and thrive anyway in any conditions. They're strong and resilient already. it really does make you think. And as we are, as you all know, as we are now receiving more children into our settings who have experienced trauma, they might be displaying signs or symptoms of anxiety and depression, which might be a sign of a special educational need or disability, or it might be sleep deprivation, which we know our young children are really suffering from. It does make us think that actually what once upon a time was a very small group of children is now growing. Our orchid group is growing, so it does make sense to focus our approach on those children and then bring the others along that road. So what we need to really do then is always in our early years settings start with the big picture first. So everything that we do and think about has got to begin with those aims and principles of the EYFS. So that quality education offer, that working in partnership with parents, really recognising every child as a unique child, meeting their needs through that role of the key person and those positive relationships, building those enabling environments for those unique individuals to enable them to learn and develop. And it's really only if we do approach our setting, our ethos in that way, can we be sure that that sense of belonging is fostered for every child. And if a child, any child, feels like your setting isn't the place for them, they don't quite fit in, they're not quite belonging, that is an absolute enormous barrier to learning and development. So we've got to start with that personal, social and emotional development and build those relationships first. Once we've got that backdrop in place, then we start looking at the educational programs, and we start that in sequence. They're in that order for a reason. So we start with those prime areas of learning and development. We know PSED, that sense of belonging, that ability to make friends, manage your own feelings and behaviour, that communication language and managing your own body physically, your health and well-being are the key things. They absolutely are the key things for us as adults as well as our youngest children. And only when those have got really strong in those building blocks, in those foundations, are children actually primed to learn in those specific areas of learning and development, which is why they follow on. When we are thinking then of this alternative approach and how we can really meet the needs of our orchids, closing gaps for those orchid children will not just happen. It takes careful planning and thought, and we need to be quite radical here because of the new cohorts of children that are coming through the door that I spoke about on the previous slide. We can't carry on in the same way because we're not receiving children that were the same children as we had 10 years ago. It's different now, so we have to be different. I would really encourage you, if you've not had a look on our website, Lancashire Early Years Support and Training, at our Early Years Pupil Premium Toolkit, to have a look at that now. So you can follow the link on the slide, or you'll find it down the right hand side of our web page when you go to that landing page. And think wider than early years pupil premium. Think orchid. Who are the orchid children? And they need to be the children that you consider in this sort of early years pupil premium closer scrutiny way. So that toolkit facilitates you really and guides you through thinking about your children who you might deem as orchids. Talk to your key persons about this. Who do they consider to be the orchids in their group? Let's list those children and look for commonalities and think about a whole staff approach, a whole setting approach. Do we need training on a particular thing as a whole staff team? So maybe the communication and language building blocks, maybe the behave training, to really make sure we've got those approaches right. And then think about the training needs, first and foremost, of key persons to meet the needs of those orchid children in their group. And that really is the most effective use of that early years pupil premium funding, to really think that through. And that adds longevity as well, because that skills and knowledge will build up over time in your practitioners. If you do want to talk about this in any more detail, then either you can contact your consultant or development officer directly and talk about this with them in a little bit more detail, or it's absolutely fine to just contact me directly as well, and I'll be happy to help too. Please do contact us using one of the methods on the slide if you'd like to chat to us further about any of the things that we've talked about through the webinar today.